Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the HSS Vigilant, watching the gleaming Dominion cruiser approach. The stark contrast between the vessels couldn't have been more apparent. Her ship's weathered hull and aging profile against the organic curves and pristine alloys of the alien vessel. The Vigilant's external lights flickered deliberately, a carefully choreographed display of supposed mechanical decline. Incoming transmission, Captain. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his communication station. Standard Dominion inspection protocols. Chen suppressed a smile. This would be the third inspection this month. The Dominion's patrols had grown increasingly frequent since humanity's expansion into this sector, each encounter an exercise in theatrical superiority. Put them through, Lieutenant. The holoscreen materialized, revealing the familiar ivory-scaled features of a Dominion overseer. This one was new. They all were lately eager young officers hoping to make their marks by intimidating the primitive humans. Human vessel. The overseer's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into standard English. This is the Dominion Enforcement Cruiser Eternal Light. Your vessel has been selected for routine inspection under Section 7 of the Technological Development Treaty. Chen nodded politely. Overseer, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Space Service vessel Vigilant. We're conducting routine border patrol. Your inspection wasn't necessary last week or the week before. Our systems haven't changed. The overseer's head frills rippled with barely concealed amusement. Perhaps not, Captain. But surely you understand our concern. That remarkable piece of engineering you call a ship continues to operate in Dominion-adjacent space. We merely wish to ensure it doesn't. He paused for effect, unexpectedly decompress. Behind Chen, her bridge crew maintained their practiced expressions of resignation. They'd all played this game before. The Dominion believed they were witnessing humanity's best attempts at spacefaring technology, a laughably primitive species barely able to maintain their aging fleet. Your concern is noted, Overseer. Transmitting our standard inspection protocols now. As Rodriguez sent the carefully crafted data package, Chen reflected on the years of preparation that had led to this moment. The Vigilant's true nature lay buried beneath layers of deliberate deception. Every system designed to appear less capable than it was. Every piece of technology carefully masked behind false readings and manufactured inefficiencies. The Overseer's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the data. Your primary reactor efficiency appears to have decreased by 3% since our last inspection. Are you certain your engineering team is competent? We make do with what we have, Overseer, Chen replied, letting a hint of defensive pride color her tone. Not all species can maintain the Dominion's level of technological achievement. The alien's satisfaction was almost palpable. Indeed, though I must admit curiosity. Why does your government insist on maintaining these vintage vessels? Surely even human shipyards could construct something more modern. We use what works, Overseer. The Vigilant may not be pretty, but she's reliable. Reliable. The Overseer laughed, the sound like grinding crystals. Your external hull shows signs of metal fatigue in 17 locations. Your shield emitters are operating at 60% of even their limited capacity. And your weapons? He shook his head. Captain, I've seen more sophisticated armaments in civilian pleasure craft. Chen spread her hands in a gesture of helpless acceptance. As you say, Overseer, will there be anything else? No, Captain. You may proceed with your patrol. Do try not to let anything vital fail before you return to port. Rescuing stranded humans is becoming tediously routine. The transmission ended, and the Dominion cruiser glided past, its wake barely registering on the Vigilant's primitive sensors. Chen waited until they were well clear before turning to her crew. Status of our guests' scans. Lieutenant Commander Patul looked up from her tactical station, dark eyes gleaming. Exactly as expected, Captain. Their active sensors picked up everything we wanted them to see. The quantum resonance maskers worked perfectly. They have no idea about the improvements we made to the containment fields. And their own systems. We gathered complete data on their new sensor suite. They're still using the same base frequencies as before, just with better resolution. Nothing our countermeasures can't handle. Chen nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. Every encounter like this one added to humanity's understanding of Dominion technology. While the aliens smugly catalogued the Vigilant's apparent shortcomings, the ship's true sensors mapped their systems in exquisite detail. "Log the encounter and send the usual package to command," Chen ordered. "They'll want to know about the sensor upgrades, and inform engineering they can dial back the reactor efficiency another 2% next time. Make it look like we're really struggling to keep her together." As her crew carry out their orders, Chen returned to the viewport. The Dominion ship was now just a bright speck in the distance, its crew no doubt laughing about the primitive vessel they'd just inspected. Let them laugh. Let them grow more confident with each encounter, more certain of their superiority. They never questioned why humanity would keep using ships like the Vigilant. Never wondered why a species capable of faster-than-light travel couldn't build more advanced-looking vessels. Their certainty of humanity's technological inferiority had become a blindfold, one that humanity had spent years carefully crafting. Chen touched the worn armrest of her command chair, feeling the thrumming power beneath its deliberately shabby exterior. Somewhere in the ship's core, the quantum reactor that the Dominion scans couldn't even detect continued its efficient operation, powering systems that would rewrite the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities when the time came. But for now, the Vigilant would continue its patrol, playing the role of an aging, barely functional warship. And with each patronizing inspection, with each mocking encounter, the Dominion's overconfidence grew. They were building their own trap, one sneering comet at a time. Chen smiled. The Dominion had forgotten one of the oldest lessons in warfare. Nothing is more dangerous than an enemy you don't take seriously. The emergency alert cut through the Vigilance bridge like a plasma torch, its urgent tone breaking the routine of another border patrol. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console, his usual calm demeanor sharpening into focused intensity. "Captain, distress signal from Research Station Omega. They're under attack. Dominion signatures detected." Captain Chen was already moving, settling into her command chair as muscle memory took over. Time to intercept. 15 minutes at standard drive. Paddle reported from tactical. Station's defenses are already compromised. Chen's mind raced through the implications. Research Station Omega was officially a deep space astronomical observatory, its powerful sensors ostensibly studying distant galaxy clusters. In reality, it was one of humanity's most sophisticated listening posts, gathering intelligence on Dominion fleet movements and communications. "This is going to cost us some secrets," Chen said quietly. Then, louder. "Sound battle stations. All hands to combat positions. Commander Patel, prepare to bring our real shields online. Engineering, stand by to drop the masking field on my mark." The Vigilance response was immediate, practiced. Behind the facade of aging systems, the crew had drilled for this moment countless times. Warning klaxons echoed through the corridors as hidden weapon ports prepared to reveal themselves. "Message from the station," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. "They've activated their data purge protocols, but the Dominion ship is attempting to breach their central core. If they get access to those computers..." Chen nodded grimly. Even wiped, the station's quantum processors could reveal too much about humanity's true technological capabilities. Time to drop the act. "All hands, this is the captain. Initiative Protocol Alpha is now in effect. Remember your training. We show them only what we must." The Vigilant dropped out of FTL near the station, and Chen felt her jaw clench at the sight. A Dominion warship, easily twice their size, was methodically cutting through the station's outer sections. Its weapons were far more powerful than anything they'd claimed to possess in official registries. Another piece of intelligence, though not one worth the cost they were paying to learn it. "Dominion vessel, this is Captain Chen of the HSS Vigilant. You are in violation of multiple treaties. Cease your attack immediately." The response was predictably dismissive. Human vessel. This facility was conducting illegal surveillance. Your presence is not required. Withdraw or be destroyed. Sir, Patil interjected, they're powering up their main weapons, reading energy signatures far above anything they've demonstrated before. Seems they've been keeping secrets too, Chen remarked. Status of their shields. Standard configuration. They're not expecting any real resistance from a rust bucket like us. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Let's not disappoint them entirely. Execute evasive pattern Delta 3. Bring point defense grid online but keep it looking crude. We'll play wounded prey for now. The Dominion ship fired, a barrage of plasma torpedoes streaking toward the Vigilant. To their sensors, it would appear the human vessel was struggling to evade, its movements jerky and desperate. In reality, each clumsy maneuver was precisely calculated, letting the shots pass harmlessly through empty space. Return fire, Chen ordered. Make it look good. Wild shots, poor targeting. But put one through their secondary sensor array. Let's see how they handle fighting blind. The Vigilant's response seemed chaotic, its weapons appearing to spray energy blasts with poor accuracy. But one shot, looking for all the world like a lucky accident, sliced through the Dominion ship's sensor cluster with surgical precision. Direct hit, Patil reported, satisfaction evident in her voice. They're switching to backup sensors, much shorter range, just as we expected. The Dominion ship's next barrage was noticeably less accurate without their main targeting systems. Their commander's voice came through again, now tinged with frustration. Your interference is futile. This vessel's capabilities are far beyond your comprehension. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to demonstrate them fully. Sir, Rodriguez cut in urgently. The station's core containment is failing. 5 minutes until catastrophic breach. Chen straightened in her chair. They couldn't let that technology fall into Dominion hands, but neither could they reveal too much of their true capabilities. A delicate balance had to be struck. Time to show them one of our cards. Tactical, target their primary engine housing with the Mark 7. Make it look like we got lucky with an experimental weapon. The Vigilant's hull shifted slightly as a hidden port opened, revealing a weapon that, according to every inspection report, didn't exist. The quantum lance struck with devastating accuracy, bypassing the Dominion's shields as if they weren't there and carving a precise hole through their engine section. The effect was immediate. The Dominion ship's power grid fluctuated wildly as its engines went dark. On their bridge, alarms would be screaming as systems failed in cascading sequence, but only the systems they needed to fail. Impossible. The Dominion commander's voice had lost its patronizing edge. Your weapons, you can't possibly. I suggest you focus on evacuating your crew, Chen interrupted calmly. Your engine containment is critical. We will provide assistance, of course, as required by interstellar law. As the Dominion crew scrambled to abandon their crippled vessel, Chen turned to Rodriguez. Get me command on a secure channel. They need to know the game's changed. She paused, watching the station's damaged hulk through the viewport. And contact our recovery teams. Whatever's left in that station's computers needs to be sanitized thoroughly. The Dominion may have forced our hand, but we're not showing all our cards. Not yet. The rescue operation proceeded exactly as planned. Another carefully choreographed performance. The Vigilance crews helped evacuate the Dominion ship with apparently primitive but functional equipment. Their medical teams provided aid using deliberately outdated-looking tools that nevertheless saved lives. Every action reinforced the image of a lucky shot from a desperate vessel, not the precisely calculated strike it had been. But as Chen watched the Dominion survivors being treated in their medical bay, she knew everything had changed. The first pieces of humanity's mask had been stripped away. The question now wasn't if the Dominion would respond, but when, and with how much force. She touched the ship's internal comm. Engineering. Begin repairs to our battle damage. Make it look good. We took quite a beating from such a superior vessel, after all. The sarcasm in her voice earned a few grim chuckles from the bridge crew. The game would become more complex now, the deception harder to maintain. But they had practiced for this, planned for it. The Dominion would come, believing they had seen humanity's best weapon, never suspecting it was merely the first layer of a much deeper deception. Let them come, Chen thought. The Vigilant and her sisters would be ready. After all, the most dangerous predator was the one you thought you had cornered. 3 weeks after the research station Omega incident, the Dominion's response arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova. Captain Chen watched from the Vigilance Bridge as the massive fleet dropped out of FTL, their formations precise and threatening. Hundreds of warships filled the space around Nueva Terra colony, their hulls gleaming with pristine menace. They certainly brought enough ships to prove their point, Commander Patel observed dryly. Counting at least 300 vessels, including 5 dreadnoughts. That's nearly a quarter of their total fleet strength. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. The Dominion ships had arranged themselves in a classic encirclement pattern, cutting off all conventional escape routes from the colony. Their formation screamed confidence, the positioning of a force that expected no real resistance. Status of our support ships. The Defiant, Challenger, and Relentless are in position, all maintaining their decrepit profiles. Admiral Zhang's task force is standing by at the rally point, still out of their sensor range. The comm system crackled to life with a priority transmission. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to Grand Admiral Vexthal of the Dominion fleet, his scales gleaming with ceremonial oils. Chen recognized him from intelligence briefings. A traditionalist, known for his absolute belief in Dominion superiority. Attention primitive vessels. Vexthal's translator rendered his words with the same condescension that colored his original clicks and whistles. Your unprovoked attack on a Dominion warship cannot go unanswered. However, we are not without mercy. Surrender your ships and evacuate the colony, and we will allow your species to maintain limited autonomy under our guidance. Chen exchanged glances with her bridge crew before responding. Grand Admiral, this is Captain Chen of the Vigilant. The incident you refer to involved your vessel attacking a civilian research station. We responded as any sovereign nation would. A sovereign nation. Vexthal's laugh was like shattering glass. You operate obsolete vessels held together by prayers and patches. Your colonies barely maintain atmospheric containment. The weapon you used against our ship was clearly experimental, a lucky shot that will not be repeated. This is your final warning. Surrender or be annihilated. Chen leaned forward in her chair, letting a hint of fear enter her voice. Please, Grand Admiral. There are 3 million civilians on Nueva Terra. This colony has no military value. Surely we can negotiate. The time for negotiations has passed. Your species must learn its place in the Galactic Order. All ships, commence firing. The space around Nueva Terra lit up as hundreds of Dominion weapons opened fire simultaneously. Their barrage was overwhelming, designed to saturate any possible defense. By all appearances, the 4 aging human vessels stood no chance against such firepower. But appearances, as the Dominion was about to learn, could be deceiving. All ships, execute Maneuver Omega, Chen ordered calmly. Show them what these rust buckets can really do. The Vigilant and her sister ships moved with impossible precision, their previously clumsy movements replaced with lethal grace. Each vessel seemed to anticipate the Dominion's targeting solutions, sliding between the shots as if the laws of physics were merely polite suggestions. On the Dominion flagship's bridge, Vexthal's composure cracked. Impossible. Their maneuvering capabilities, recalibrate targeting systems, they must have some form of sensor deception. But sensor deception was just the beginning. As the human ships danced through the barrage, hidden weapon ports began to open across their hulls. The shabby exterior plates shifted and reformed, revealing sophisticated weapon systems that had never appeared on any inspection report. All ships, initiate Phase 2, Chen commanded. Selective targets only. Let's not spoil all our surprises at once. The Vigilant's response was devastating in its precision. Quantum lances sliced through Dominion shields as if they were tissue paper, disabling engines and weapons with surgical accuracy. The other human ships followed suit, each strike calculated to disable rather than destroy, each target chosen to maximize the psychological impact. "This is impossible." Vexthal's voice had lost all pretense of superiority. "Your weapons, your ships, they can't." "Can't what, Grand Admiral?" Chen's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Can't match your technology. Can't possibly threaten your superior forces. I suggest you check your fleet status." The Dominion's formation was in chaos. Dozens of their ships drifted powerless, their engines and weapons disabled by precisely targeted strikes. Others fired wildly, their sophisticated targeting systems corrupted by electronic warfare suites that, according to every inspection, couldn't possibly exist. "Now, Grand Admiral," Chen continued, "I suggest you consider your next actions carefully. Those 3 million civilians you were ready to sacrifice, they're quite safe behind planetary shields your sensors still can't detect, and the reinforcements you're undoubtedly calling for. They'll find the same surprises waiting for them. You deceived us." Vexthal's accusation carried the weight of dawning horror. "All these years, we learned from the best, Grand Admiral. Your people were so certain of their superiority, so convinced of our primitive nature, that you never questioned why we maintained these obsolete ships. You never wondered what else we might be hiding." As if to emphasize her point, Admiral Zheng's task force chose that moment to reveal itself, dropping their stealth fields and appearing behind the Dominion fleet. Their ships were different, sleek, modern, unburdened by the need for deception. The message was clear. What the Dominion had seen was just the tip of the iceberg. Your fleet is surrounded, your ships disabled, and your assumptions about human capabilities have been proven catastrophically wrong, Chen stated flatly. "I suggest we discuss terms for your withdrawal. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to see what else these primitive vessels can do." The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted irrevocably. The Dominion's certainty of superiority, carefully nurtured by years of human deception, shattered like crystal under a hammer blow. Chen watched the Dominion fleet's disarray with a mixture of satisfaction and regret. The deception had worked perfectly, almost too perfectly. The Dominion had walked into their trap with all the arrogance they'd spent years cultivating. But this was just the beginning. The real question wasn't whether the Dominion would retaliate, but how their entire civilization would react to the revelation that they'd been so thoroughly deceived. As she prepared to begin negotiations, Chen couldn't help but wonder. In teaching the Dominion this harsh lesson about underestimating humanity, had they perhaps gone too far? The coming days would tell, and the galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the Nueva Terra incident spread through Dominion space like a shockwave. Captain Chen stood in the Vigilance Tactical Center, watching real-time intelligence feeds from across the galaxy. The Dominion's carefully maintained image of technological supremacy was crumbling, and their response was becoming increasingly desperate. "Another border skirmish in the Centauri sector," Commander Puttle reported, updating the tactical display. The Dominion tried to overwhelm the HFY Intrepid with superior numbers. They lost 6 ships before retreating. "They still don't understand," Chen murmured, studying the battle data. "They think if they just commit enough forces, use enough firepower, they can prove Nueva Terra was a fluke." The door hissed open as Admiral Zheng entered, his weathered face grave. The Admiral had transferred his flag to the Vigilant after the battle, recognizing that the ship had become a symbol to both sides. "The Dominion Council is in chaos," Zheng announced without preamble. "Our intelligence networks report 3 factions have emerged. The traditionalists want to commit their entire fleet to crush us, the reformists are pushing for diplomatic solutions, and the isolationists are calling for a complete withdrawal from human space." Chen nodded, unsurprised. "And their military response? Increasingly erratic. Their fleet commanders are second-guessing everything they thought they knew about our capabilities. Some are overcompensating, treating every human cargo ship like a potential dreadnought. Others are taking insane risks, trying to prove they can still defeat us through superior tactics. Latest casualty figures. Zhang's expression tightened. Too high. The Dominions lost 37 capital ships in the past week alone. Their crews are following outdated tactical doctrines against threats they don't understand. It's a slaughter. The tactical display updated again, showing another confrontation unfolding in real time. A Dominion battle group had engaged the HSS Defiant near the Proxima colony. The obsolete human vessel was systematically dismantling ships that should have outclassed it in every way. "We need to end this soon," Chen said quietly. "Every battle reveals more of our capabilities, and the Dominion's responses are becoming more extreme. If the traditionalists gain control of their council, they'll throw their entire fleet at us in a desperate bid to restore their supremacy." Zhang finished. Millions would die on both sides. A priority alert flashed across the tactical display. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. "Captain, Admiral, you're needed on the bridge. We're picking up a transmission from the Dominion Council. They're requesting a direct dialogue." When they reached the bridge, the main screen showed a scene of barely contained chaos. The Dominion Council chamber was packed with representatives from every major faction, their scales flickering with agitation. At the center stood High Counselor Vestar, the nominal head of their government. Captain Chen, the High Counselor's translator, rendered his words with remarkable steadiness. "Your vessel has become something of a symbol among our people. Some call it the harbinger of our downfall. Others, a warning we should have heeded long ago." "And what do you call it, High Counselor?" "A mirror, Captain. One that has shown us truths we spent centuries ignoring." Vestar's head frills rippled with what Chen had learned to recognize as resignation. "Our entire society was built on the assumption of technological superiority. We judged, we dictated, we dismissed, all because we believed ourselves to be the most advanced species in known space. An assumption we carefully encourage," Chen acknowledged. "Every inspection, every mock battle, every seemingly primitive response, all designed to reinforce your beliefs." Yes, the word seemed to pain him. "And now that belief has been shattered. Our fleets are in disarray. Our people are questioning everything we taught them. And our enemies, those we've dominated through technological superiority, are watching very carefully." Admiral Zhang stepped forward. "Then perhaps it's time for the Dominion to consider a new path. One based on cooperation rather than domination." A commotion erupted in the council chamber. Chen could see the various factions arguing, their translators overlapping in a cacophony of competing demands. Vestar raised his hands for silence. "There are those among us who believe we should commit our entire civilization to destroying humanity, even if it means our own destruction in the process. They would rather die than accept a galaxy where the Dominion is not supreme." "And what do you believe, High Counselor?" "I believe that any species capable of maintaining such an elaborate deception, of advancing their technology in secret while appearing primitive, is not one we can afford to underestimate again." Vestar's scales shifted to a deep blue, a sign of formal authority. "I am prepared to offer terms." The bridge fell silent. This was the moment that would determine whether the galaxy would plunge into total war or find a new balance. "We're listening," Admiral Zhang said carefully. "A full military withdrawal from human space, recognition of human sovereignty and technological parity, a commitment to diplomatic rather than military solutions for future disputes." Vestar paused. "In exchange, we ask for your help in transitioning our society. Our people need to learn new ways of thinking, of interacting with other species. We need time to change without appearing weak to those who would take advantage of our uncertainty." Chen exchanged glances with Zhang. The offer was more than they'd hoped for, but the implementation would be delicate. The Dominion's pride was wounded, but not broken. push too hard, and the traditionalists might still seize power. A reasonable starting point for negotiations, John replied. But tell me, High Counselor, what convinced you to take this path? Vestar's answer was immediate. The Vigilant, Admiral. Not just its hidden capabilities, but what it represents. You could have built ships that showed your true power. Instead, you chose patience, cunning, and understanding of your opponent's psychology. You defeated us not through superior firepower, but through superior insight. That is a lesson we need to learn. As the preliminary negotiations began, Chen returned to the tactical display. Across Dominion space, their fleets were standing down, withdrawing to defensive positions. The immediate crisis was passing, but the real work was just beginning. The Dominion would need to remake itself, and humanity would need to help guide that transformation without appearing to control it. The galaxy was changing, and the Vigilant, the ship the Dominion had mocked for so long, had been the catalyst. Chen smiled, remembering all the sneering comments, all the patronizing inspections. The Dominion had learned too late that true strength lies not in the power you display, but in the wisdom to know when to hide it. And now they would learn an even harder lesson, that maintaining peace requires more skill than winning war. 1 year after the Nueva Terra incident, the HSS Vigilant hosted an unprecedented gathering. Captain Chen watched as Dominion engineers moved through her ship's corridors alongside human technicians, their former arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. The vessel that had once been dismissed as a primitive rust bucket had become a symbol of transformation. Symbolic, John commented. A new horizon for both our peoples. And for the galaxy, Texfall added. Already, other species are following this model of cooperation. The empire we built through force is being replaced by something better. Chen touched a control, bringing up an image of the Vigilant from a year ago, its deliberately weathered hull and flickering lights a stark contrast to its current appearance. We don't need the deception anymore, but sometimes I miss it. There was something satisfying about being underestimated. You still are, in some ways, Texfall said thoughtfully. The traditionalists believe this is all part of some grander human deception. They're convinced you're still hiding your true capabilities, that this cooperation is another layer of manipulation. Are they wrong? Patil asked with a slight smile. The Dominion commander's scales shifted through several colors before settling on one Chen recognized as representing wry acknowledgement. That's the beautiful irony of it all. We'll never know for certain. And that uncertainty, that necessity to question our assumptions, it may be the most valuable lesson you've taught us. The tactical center filled with activity as the next shift arrived. Humans and Dominion working side by side, each bringing their own perspectives and expertise. Chen watched them work, remembering the years of careful deception that had led to this moment. The Vigilant had played its role perfectly, appearing weak when it was strong, primitive when it was advanced. That deception had brought the Dominion to its knees, not through violence, but through the shattering of certainty. And from that shattered certainty, something new had emerged, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared understanding. As Chen prepared for another joint patrol, she reflected on the true victory. The Dominion hadn't just learned about human capabilities. They'd learned to question, to doubt, to consider possibilities beyond their preconceptions. The empire of absolute certainty had been replaced by a civilization willing to learn, to grow, to change. The Vigilant's greatest deception had become its greatest gift. The lesson that true strength lies not in technological superiority or military might, but in the wisdom to look beyond appearances and the courage to acknowledge when you're wrong. The rust bucket that had been mocked across the galaxy had changed that galaxy's very nature. Not through the weapons it had hidden, but through the questions it had raised. And those questions would continue to reshape the future, long after the need for deception had passed.